everyone. Welcome to the second edition of our Student Spotlight. Today we have with us a exciting new guest. He is currently based in Beijing. He joined us for our summer session with Dr. Tom McLeland on the philosophy of business. His name is Siming He, and it's a pleasure to have you here, Siming. How are you doing?
Hi, good. How are you?
Good. So like our previous student spotlight, we're just gonna sort of briefly talk about your experiences at CCIR. I wanna learn a little more about your project. I forgot to do a little bit of introduction myself. I'm Director of Marketing Outreach and Outreach at CCIR. I also happen to be currently doing my PhD in philosophy over at Georgetown. I don't work on the philosophy business or on ethics. I'm super interested in trust because the area that I'm working on is called social epistemology. I don't know if you know anything. So I guess like a first question for you is, why did you pick the philosophy of business in the first place?
Yeah, because I'm always interested in the technology, innovation, and entrepreneurship. So I think the business philosophy would be a valuable course for me to learn about the implications of the innovations and how they related to ethics.
I'm curious, have you done any philosophy? Have you read any philosophy before you took this class, or was philosophy totally new to you?
Actually, philosophy is totally new to me. I have read some books about philosophy, but I never learned them in class.
So I'm curious, what books did you read, if I may ask? Because in high school, I knew nothing about philosophy. I barely knew that it existed. And then in college, I took some classes, and suddenly, now I'm here. But what sort of drew you to the philosophy side of this thing?
Actually, the only philosophy book I read through is called The Sophist War, and it's the only easy philosophy book I found. And I also bought some book written by Kant and some other impactful philosophers, but I found it's really hard to understand their arguments. So I just give up on those hard books.
Yeah. No, Kant is impossible. I am ashamed to admit that I tried and failed to read Kant. Kant is also kind of boring. I don't know if I should say that, but to me, I find it really difficult. So you took your class with Dr. McLeland, or as we prefer to call him, Tom. Tell me a bit about your initial experience, because you were totally new to philosophy. What was it like sort of coming into the field, brand new? How was the first sort of lecture component experience with Tom? Were there any things that surprised you? What did you find sort of most enjoyable about this first section of the course?
Yeah, I think the most enjoyable thing is Tom really teach us the basic frameworks of philosophy and the foundations, the foundation theories of philosophy. They teach us the theories in the first several classes, so that we can do a lot of our writings based on the foundations. And also they taught us how to write the philosophy arguments, and I think it's pretty useful.
I read your paper, and it really reads ultimately your paper got published. Is that right?
Right, it's published on a journal.
Yeah, and when I read it, I was incredibly impressed. As someone who is not yet published, it had the structure, the formal structure of a publishable philosophy essay. It broke down the arguments in immense detail. It looked incredibly impressive. Could you tell us, remind me of the title of your paper?
So the title I think is the impact of blockchain technology on business trust.
Okay, so there are clearly two components to this this project you were working on. One is blockchain, and the other is this long-standing topic in ethics and also in social epistemology of trust, of the nature of trust, and sort of you go through various theories of trust in your paper, especially in the context of the philosophy of business. How did you sort of come to bring these two topics together? I haven't seen any work done on the philosophy of blockchain. I thought it was super cool that you took this angle. But how did you sort of come up with this idea?
At first, I'm like firstly interested in the technology side of blockchain, and I did some like own research on the technology of blockchain. And since I'm interested in the ethics and philosophies, when I took this course, I thought, why not to discover some ethics issues related to the blockchain, because obviously there's some trust issues related to the blockchain technology in today's world. So that's what brings me to this topic. And also Tom encourages me to write this topic because like I think it's also a really cool topic and gives me a lot of help.
So how did you feel like the philosophical angle helped you identify, or the philosophical way of thinking helped you think through the ethical issues of blockchain? Because, I mean, blockchain is this incredibly new phenomenon that sort of a lot of us are still grappling to come to terms with. How did you feel like, you know, theories of trust, how did this philosophical perspective help you understand something that's, you know, incredibly technologically forward and innovative? How did you feel like this connection was enlightening or not? Yeah,
I think a lot of like, in my opinion, like philosophy has a lot of really great frameworks for like to get us to think. So I think when I read a lot of papers, I found like the author, I forgot the name, but he divides trust into three levels, which is the competence trust, the contractual trust, and also the goodwill trust. So I think this is a pretty useful framework for me to analyze the trust issue of blockchain from different aspects. And that's why I choose this angle to write. And I think it helps me to like investigate on this issue like in like more detail.
So that makes me wonder, was there any particular lecture or lecture of Tom's or paper that you guys discussed together? And I should also mention, who was your TA?
Oh,
Do
sorry.
you remember the name?
I really forget the name, but
okay,
but,
yeah, no, because I just felt like we shouldn't leave them out, because it'd be unfair to forget about the TA, because the TA is also an essential component of the course.
Yeah, okay, it's
But
really nice.
anyway, yeah,
it helped me to like revise the outline of my paper and revise the paper like a lot. He did a lot of things for me.
Yeah. No, but what I was going to ask is, was there any lecture or discussion that you found especially memorable, that you thought was particularly either helpful for your project, or is this sort of enlightening or eye-opening in any other respect? Is there any one that you can sort of immediately think of?
Yeah, I think because this course is about business ethics, and there's one lecture specifically about the trust. And at the end of the lecture, the professor gives us some open-ended questions, and I've got the details of the questions, but I remember it's the questions that inspires me to think more about the trust and also think about doing the paper topics.
Do you roughly remember what the questions were?
Sorry, I don't remember, but I remember it's like really open-ended and hard questions. So I take a long time to think about it. And I also write a short essay about it, and we discuss about it in the next lecture. So that's why I have a lot of understanding of the questions. Yeah, at that time,
So
but I forgot most of them.
Yeah, no. So tell me a little bit about this process of, so you guys would do readings every week, and then discuss during class, and would you then always write an essay and then discuss the essay in the next class? How was your particular experience structured?
So we have a lot of readings, and I think it's supposed to be as a philosophy class. And in the lecture, like Tom taught us some like philosophy concepts, and then we start discuss about the readings of the previous week. And in the end, Tom will give us some questions, and we will write about like 300 words essay in that week. And in the next lecture, we will also discuss about the essays. And because in my class, there's like 5 students, and we can all share our ideas and like discuss about our essays. So I think it's also very inspiring.
So tell me a little bit about your interactions with your classmates, because in my experience, the best philosophy classes have always been the ones where I have eager, intelligent classmates who are willing to take me down. For one thing, sort of discussing these deep and difficult philosophical issues with an actual philosopher, which you sometimes forget even exist. You forget that there are philosophers walking around on the planet. But what was this experience? What was sort of your experience of doing philosophy with other students and with the teacher? How was that for you?
I think it's like very interesting and rewarding because like we have a lot of like arguments, and sometimes we really can't persuade each other, but during the arguments, like we think more about our own standing, and we like refine our own arguments, and like we improve together, although maybe we didn't reach the same like conclusion in the end.
No, I think that's absolutely right. At least a certain understanding of philosophy. Philosophy is really less about, well, it's a whole bunch of it is about persuading other people and getting things right. But a lot of it is really, especially when you are discussing issues of ethics, I think a lot of things end up being matters of self-knowledge, of sort of clarifying your own thoughts through this process of arguing with other people, coming to have stronger, more logically coherent positions. And as you said, I mean, that was a very precise choice of word that I liked, which was sort of knowing where you stand. I think that's really just an essential part of doing philosophy and doing it really well, is just like through this back and forth process, coming to sort of know where you stand.
Yeah, like just saying, like I think like everyone has some blind spot that they didn't think about, but like when others talk about it and others give some new examples, like I can immediately know like where I missed. So yeah, I think discussion is really important.
So I have a few more questions to ask you. One is, I just want to sort of hear a little bit more about your project, because it sounds super cool. I actually think if, and obviously you maybe now hate philosophy and never want to come back. I hope not. But if you actually do go on to do some more work in philosophy, something like this topic could actually get you into a really good graduate program, because I don't think a lot of people are working on this issue. And I think there's an increasing interest in the philosophy of technology. I recently talked to a professor over at Oxford, Luciano Floridi, who does a lot of work on the philosophy of information. So he's really looking at how the internet is changing the way we think, who we are, and all of these issues. He has a really cool book called The Fourth Revolution that I would recommend. But I just think it's really cool that you're marrying these two traditional philosophical issues and theories and applying them and using them to critically examine issues that are deeply relevant to our lives today, such as the nature and function of blockchain. So tell me, maybe like in elevator pitch or abstract version, what the overview of your project was.
I think at the beginning, after the literature review, I talk about what's the conflict or what's the issue between the blockchain and trust. So basically, blockchain is the technology that allows the participants to share the informations so that no one can actually manipulate the information. And that's why we call the blockchain a trustless machine, because everyone can trust it and no one can manipulate it. That's what got me interested in the topic, because I wonder if people realize more and more on blockchain, which is a trustless machine, what will it impact our society and our trust in business? One example of the trustless machine blockchain is application in the supply chain. So nowadays, a lot of companies use the blockchain technology to track their supply chain, and someone think and it's definitely more efficient. However, there may be some issues about business trust. So as I said, I talk about trust in the framework, and when talk about the competence trust, I said my argument is that although we call blockchain a trustless machine, we actually still need to trust the blockchain, and we are just changing our. In the past, we trust others, we trust other business partners, but right now we are all trusting the centralized blockchain technology, and that's why I think might be a issue of blockchain technology, because it increases the risk when the blockchain technology fail the trust. And for my second argument about the contractual trust, I said because the blockchain technology are basically a program, when programmers code the contract, it might be different interpretations between the actual contract and the contract coded in programming language. And I think it will create some opportunism. Thirdly, I talk about the goodwill trust. So I think when people relies more on blockchain technology, people basically realize and focus more on the data. As a result, they probably focus less on the goodwill. And sometimes it's a bad thing. For example, one terminology I learned in the lecture was the greenwashing. So basically, it's some companies act like they are environmental friendly companies. However, actually they are doing something not environmental friendly. When people totally rely on blockchain, some companies may not fake but manipulate to show other business partners really good data. However, in other aspects, they may do something really bad, and it cannot reveal by the data on blockchain. Most of the arguments I did in the paper.
Yeah, I mean, we could definitely go on and talk about this in a lot more detail, because I find it really quite fascinating. Has there been sort of, when you did the literature review, has there been substantial work in philosophy on this issue, or were you mostly just sort of trying to look at the literature on blockchain and then look at the literature on trust and see the connections yourself?
Most of the time I'm trying to see the connections by myself because there's not a lot of like literatures on this topic, and it's actually really struggle at that time because I really cannot find a point for me to based on the art, like to based on some literatures. Yeah.
I mean, but all the while, if any of our viewers decide to read your paper, they'll see that the citations, you have like a citation every other sentence. It's really, really quite impressive, the literature review you did. And I think it is definitely a hats off to you for pulling this off, because doing actually original philosophical work is incredibly, incredibly difficult. I find it incredibly impressive that, you know, as a high schooler, you were able to do this, and not just because people often think that with originality and philosophical thinking, you just sort of like sit around and think. But really, what you have to do is research. You have to dive into the nitty gritties of, you know, what the nature of the phenomenon that you're looking at is like. You really did an impressive amount of research on that front. Again, I really want to keep going and talking and talk more about your research, but I want to shift a little right now and talk a little bit about what you're doing right now and what you're about to do. So you're currently based in Beijing, and which year are you in? Which grade are you in?
Oh, like I just graduated last year from high school, and right now I'm a freshman at University of Pennsylvania. Yeah, I major
Incredible.
in computer science, which seems far from philosophy, but like I'm thinking about double major or doing something related to like business or business ethics.
Moving forward, what do you envision do you want to do more work in blockchain? What are your sort of rough hopes and aspirations? Obviously, you know, as a 19-year-old, things will change, but what do you envision yourself doing at the moment?
At the moment, I think I'm going to do like research on the artificial intelligence and the deep learning, because I think it's a really powerful technology that can help the society a lot, because it can help humans to do a lot of jobs, and it can help like people no longer doing some repetitive and boring works. And I think it's a really great technology. And after college, maybe I will go to like PhD programs, like, and learn about artificial intelligence. But like, I think at the same time, because artificial intelligence is also really related to philosophy, and also the applications of artificial intelligence, like it's also related to a lot of ethical issues. I think philosophy would be a really valuable guide for me in my future career.
So do you feel like you've taken anything away from your experience, your exposure with philosophy, and your experience with Tom and with the course, that will sort of help you? Anything in particular that will help you along this road?
Things I learned about business ethics and philosophies in the course, and the philosophical way of thinking would really helps me, because in the past I'm always thinking like as a computer scientist, and I think it's it's only one way of thinking. But if I can think about like if I can think about from a philosophical view, I think I always find a lot of more inspiring things about the technologies and the like innovations I see and I learned like every day in school. So, yeah.
Yeah, and just like a side plug, we're that you might actually be interested in. We're currently working with a researcher over at the University of Cambridge who works in the history and philosophy of science department, HPS, which is a super cool department at Cambridge that you might be interested in, like just looking at. because they do weird and cool work where they take this sort of interdisciplinary perspective on science and technology. And the researcher we're working with, Johnny Penn, he does work on the history and the political economy of artificial intelligence. His work is super duper interesting. He's sort of looking at what he calls the social imaginary of artificial intelligence, how people sort of think about artificial intelligence and how that ends up affecting the ways in which we employ it, and how it leads us to change the nature of artificial intelligence. And so yeah, super cool work you might be interested in.
It sounds really cool. Can you send me like the name and the name of the
absolutely
professor?
And you know, we actually are opening a course with him in the spring. Not that I imagine you'd be incredibly busy at University of Pennsylvania currently, but you know, we could even talk on the side and maybe sneak you in as an auditor, given that you're a star student. But one more sort of just general question: if there's something you maybe would like to share about your experience at CCIR, and either with your mentor or with your TA, or about your project that I haven't yet touched on, is there anything in particular that you would like to add?
So in this project, I think my professor Tom and my TA are all really like caring and patient. And I think like for my topic, I think the readings are really basic. So, but like the most important thing is how Tom and my TA like always challenges me and asks me questions, and it inspires me to think more and deeper into the topics. And I think that's the most important thing I think I learned from this course. That's how I can always challenge my own like thinking and to get deeper about arguments. Another thing, like they really teach me how to write about philosophical essays, and they help me a lot during the literature reviews and doing the outline and also the final revise of my paper. So
yeah, it sounds like they spent a lot of time. I mean, you couldn't get a paper of that quality without a good deal of collaborative work, I think. I imagine people who teach philosophy would dream of their students saying something like, I now have learned how to criticize myself better. Like that's what philosophy teachers sort of go around telling people why what they do their job for, which is to just sort of not necessarily to teach about theories of trust or business ethics, but really just to like cultivate a way of thinking and even like a way of understanding yourself. Incredible. So that pretty much concludes our time here. Siming, I want to thank you for joining us today. I will be sure to send you the information about Johnny's work. I'll maybe send you a couple of cool articles by him. But thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.